A wet MCG, and you'd be forgiven for expecting a snooze fest. But footy is a funny old game, innit? Carlton and Melbourne, no finals hopes left. Two clubs that feel like they're stuck in the mud. But, as usual, delivered a chaotic, absorbing game. We had a Stephen May freight train, a kid called Ashton Moyer turning heads, and Jacob Wheatering saying not today, but Jake Melksham, and Cozzy Pickett proving he does Pickett things time and time again. But underneath all the noise, Carlton might have just got something. The turnover game generated 50 points, 64% of their total, from pressure to chaos. Let's break it all down. Let's start with footy itself. In the first half, honestly, it was slippery, it was cagey, definitely wasn't highlight reel stuff, but one thing stood out immediately was Carlton were determined to try and find something. Playing a team with a similar style to them, their turnover pressure was the name of the game. 13 of the 28 points in the first came directly from errors from Melbourne. By full-time, that had risen to 50, their highest total since round 9 this year. And this was just really a showcase of how hard they were working. And it was really poignant in this game. You saw Carlton work really hard for limited results. Cowan jumping passing lanes, Chera pouncing on hospital handballs. There was aggressive turnover structure. They were scraping for territory and they were hunting in packs. Then came the third quarter and the tempo definitely spiked. And it was all that moment when Stephen May delivered that brutal hit on Francis Evans. Both players, eyes on the ball, May coming in, shoulder, Evans goes down concussed, and suddenly the crowd did peak and it really came to life. And Melbourne started to get the momentum. Cozzy Pickett, he had 5 goals in the end. 2 of them were absolutely filled from boundary after boundary. And then he had a real good scrappy little goal with players around him. He was electric and looked like he could be the match winner. He was really strong and really proving why Melbourne have put so much effort into keeping him around. Fourth quarter, and the game was in the balance, but this is where it really impressed me. The Blues did try and absorb that pressure. They slowed the tempo down, particularly in the last 10 minutes. De Koning's mammoth contested mark. Cripps doing clearance things and coming alive. And then a nice little free for Charlie Curnow. Bang, game over. And that was really strong from the Blues. The Blues needed that. We needed some sustenance. I hate to say it, but we did need some wins. So let's go over how this game went on. Because this really is kind of the blueprint of where Carlton are going wrong this year. Having 50 points off 78, that's a 64% turnover score ratio. It is really important the Blues get this right. And you do see that this is where our strength and our weakness lies. High half forwards, they come up hard. It's really, really condensed in the middle. But at times, even though it wasn't perfect, they did bomb it long and it lacks finesse. It does force teams to have to go hard. The turnover with Carroll being able to burst through the arc, the ability to get the ball moving forward quicker with Cowan and Carroll is definitely signs there that in the future, that is what Carlton have got to focus on. Their ability to slingshot and go harder. Ashton Moyer, he's been a big fan of this show. We have been huge on him. In his very limited career, 4 goals, 3 of them left foot beauties from outside 40. And let's not talk about how hard he works. He really attacks the space hard. Clean snap on goal, very good footy IQ, a lot of paddles on. He's got the instincts you can't teach. He doesn't just lead, he reacts to space and he's composed and looks for the chaos. And you know what? Taking that replacement shot on Evans just shows where he is. Real strong player. And let's look at Wheatering as well. While Moyer lifted, Jacob Wheatering went back to his best. Jake Melksham, who has been absolutely phenomenal, 14 goals in the last 3. Wheatering blanketed him. 8 marks, 9 of them intercepts. 9 intercepts, 6 spoils, no panic, and he really looked to try and cut it off. His ability to lead forwards when he's playing well into the space he wants, he really did give Melksham a bath and led him into dark territories where he could capitalise. And then let's talk about the young kids. Matt Carroll, left-footed, smart, first AFL goal, and he was very controlled with the ball in hand. Had a difficult week last week, and this just shows the courage of the man to bounce back. Flynn Young, he works so tirelessly up that half-forward flank, and the pressure was really good this week. And Lockie Cowan, the intent is clear. When he tightens up, he is a danger. And his ability to hit targets but drive us out the back half of the ground is really strong. There was that hit on Francis Evans, shoulder to jaw. It's always bad. Do I think he was malicious? No, he was careless, definitely. He'll cop some weeks, and rightly so. But it did do something to the crowd. They were mammoth in there. And you know what? Some of the pressure towards the end of the game, it really did lift up a notch. And these are the games that we've seen in the third quarters, particularly Carlton lose. And the fact that they galvanised against a team that has the same deficiencies of them is only a positive for me. Now, let's look at the Ds. Pickett was sensational. Gawn grinded. Fritsch presented well. But very similar to Carlton, there is a clear lack of forward structure. The overlap run isn't used enough, and that was something that stood out on both sides. Also, the discipline of Melbourne, they were really, really giving up some weird challenges. And then third quarters, the battle of the third quarter Blues. Melbourne, their third quarters have been ordinary like the Blues, and you really did see this in the third. The Blues reacted to this a little bit better, but they had no width, no structure, and they need to rethink that because Pickett really did paper over the cracks. And for the Blues, this is something that they've got to commit a little bit more to, be a little bit more dangerous, really go for it. And when we look at this game in isolation, Carlton 50 points off turnover, they worked really hard with and without the ball. Pickett, they'll still continue to be that bugbear of the Blues side if you can float in there. This is a really interesting game for me because what I really got out of this game is that the future for the Blues, they have some players. They has to be, like, in my opinion, a structural change because when you're going up against a team like Melbourne who enjoy that contested football, they enjoy trying to keep the ground very condensed. It does play into Carlton's system there. I would have liked to have seen us be a little bit more bold at times, and I know that there's a confidence issue at the Blues, but it does feel that they are playing within themselves, and it was really noticeable on the ground how hard these boys work for limited reward. What I mean by that is Cerra, I feel like he could be a little bit more ostentatious with the ball that he uses. And it was quite noticeable that players like Saad and Doherty, although Doherty kicked the goal, warrior-like as always, their mandate is to clear their lines first as opposed to looking to play with the ball and get something happening and getting something really quickly on the slingshot. And that is definitely the next thing that I want to see, particularly in these next 5 weeks. I want to see the Blues play a little bit more bold and a little bit more industrious. When they did that against Melbourne, Melbourne did look like they were struggling with that. And that is a real fascinating conundrum for the Blues. They do seem safety first. It was really noticeable on the ground with a lot of the players positioning. It's safety first. And I feel like there is some players here that genuinely want the ball moving a little bit quicker. You saw when the ball was moving quicker, Ashton was strong. That was what he was looking for. He was looking to impact in that avenue. And it was really, really, really a standout for me that when the Blues move it with a little bit of vigour and a little bit of desperation, they can get it in. But the youth there for the Blues has really won that. The big thing, though, that this game told me is that both teams made a lot of unforced errors. Panic kicks, floating handballs. The first half pressure from the Blues didn't really translate into tackles. And the connection breakdowns from both sides at times really, really does hurt. And Carlton at times have this method of just bombing it into that forward 50. Charlie Curnow, it was good to see him back on the score sheet, but a lot of them kicks inside 50 don't favour the halfbacks. They definitely don't favour the key forwards. And that is an area that I feel that the Blues, particularly in the off-season, whoever the coach may be, have to try and iron that out. Because when the ball is in motion, the Blues look a lot more solid. It's going to be a really interesting thing to see of what both sides do in the next 5 weeks. Melbourne commits to that new game plan, and the Blues have got to try and unlock something. So what do we learn? Carlton, they have something in them young players. Not in ladder position, but in that youth. Pressure, turnover-based scoring, it's not flashy, but when it works like that, it's about adding the next layer and maximising the talent of Carroll, Moyer, and players like that. And for Melbourne, the questions linger. Pickett's elite, Gawn is ageing, but the structure is a mess. And for the finish, let's say, it's not great. And that has got to be something that Melbourne do address in the off-season. As a Blue Bagger, it's going to be an interesting one. But what do you think we should do in the next 5 weeks to approach? It's great to see Ashton Moyer fight it out. It's great to see the youth. If you enjoyed this preview and breakdown, thank you very much for watching. I appreciate you all. Smash that like button, hit that subscribe. You know what? Go Blues. And at least the Chaos Merchants in the Merchant Derby, Carlton were the winners. Thank you very much and see you later on.